All right, guys, welcome back to another Master and Apprentice video slash podcast. Today we've got a really fun video. Back when we first started, we did a ranking all the movies and shows at the time. There's a link somewhere up here. There you go. It will be in the description at the end of the video, and it'll be one of the videos that pops up, so you can watch it. It's nothing but greatness is all I can explain it with. Just all I can suggest is just watching it probably a dozen times over, and you'll understand the true greatness between us as a duo. Anyways, it's been a year. I figured, once a year at this date, November 5th, if I can remember right, I think that's the right date, we're going to upload this video. This is part 2. Yeah, got anything on it, Afton?
Nope. Did it once before. Let's do it again, kids.
Yeah. So, without further ado, let's get right into it, ladies and gents. We have the same exact tiers. We got George Lucas. It's mint. It's exactly what Star Wars is. It's George Lucas. It's his envision. It's what we expect when we watch the movies. We expect George Lucas' story. Then we have Ewan McGregor. It's just great. A great actor, a great story, right? That's what Ewan McGregor is. C-3PO it's there. It's funny sometimes. It's kind of annoying sometimes, but it's there. It's great. It's Star Wars though. It's kind of like the base level of Star Wars, right? Then we got BB-9E. It's a concept. It's not awful, right? It's I don't know why that just moved.
It exists.
It exists. It's not very great. It's a step away from being really bad, but it's not awful. You know what I mean? It's okay. It's okay. And then we have flying lightsabers. It really should have never been created, and it was there for one time, and we never saw it again for good reason. So yeah. For our first one, we've got this one.
Yeah.
I don't know what that was.
Is that 7, 8, or 9? I see Rey and Kylo Ren.
Okay, this is 1. Let me find 8 or 9. This is 8. Okay, this is 9. So we've got Rise of the Skywalker. Personally, it's between BB-9E and Flying Lightsaber. I actually don't mind. You know what? This is Flying Lightsaber.
It has to be Flying Lightsaber. If this isn't, nothing is.
Yeah, this whole movie was about pretty much going back on everything that the 8th movie was, right? It was just about, what's the word when you
Backtrack?
Reverse it? I guess backtrack.
Not
sure.
really. They just pretty much, they didn't decanonize, but if this movie was the centerfold of new Star Wars, they would be basically just taking the plot a whole new direction. Like just
8 went a
screwing
different
everything else.
direction, and then 9 wanted to retract everything that 8 did, and that's not a good movie. That's an awful movie. There's not a lot of cool things in this that you think about it either. They brought back old characters just to kill most of them off. The story wasn't that intriguing. Like, they just pretty much forgot everything about 7 and 8, killed off the characters, like the cool new characters, and then that was it. And then they gave us some old characters and old character arcs and old plot lines.
Exactly.
The cinematic, what is it called?
The cinematic visual effects.
Yeah,
special effects.
the special effects, great. But that's all that it has going for it. Like, I would watch it as a movie because of that, but like the story would not be intriguing to me. So personally, and I think most people would happen to agree, it goes in Flying Lightsaber. It just really shouldn't exist as is. Next we have, I believe this is episode 6, Return of the Jedi. This is George Lucas for me. We go right from the bottom right to the top. I love this movie. This is one of my favorite movies. This and Revenge of the Sith, they go back and forth. Return of the Jedi is exactly, and I'm most talking about the edited version. I don't remember exactly when it came out, but when Hayden Christensen's the Force Ghost, right? And then like when the Empire's defeated, it shows all the planets like Coruscant. Like that adds a lot of effect for me personally, and I love it. Like when I watch the end, I always get teary-eyed, right? Like when I watch Revenge of the Sith, same thing. So this is close. I don't know if it's my first or second, but it's either one of the two. How do you feel?
I'd have to throw it. I couldn't put it above Revenge of the Sith. I do think it's an amazing movie overall.
Would you agree, George Lucas?
I'd agree, George Lucas.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Mando. We're gonna count for both seasons. So if a season kind of sucked, it's gonna tamper the other season. And personally, I didn't like season 1 a lot. Season 1 gave me a lot of Kenobi vibes that we've seen now. Like it was okay, but it wasn't like super intriguing, right? Like the ending of it was kind of intriguing. with some different appearances like the Darksaber, but like the rest of the season, the only reason it was intriguing at the time is because it was the only Star Wars to offer, right?
To come out in a while, other than the movies. Isn't that the first TV show that came out like in a long time?
It was the first Disney Plus show, so it kicked it off great for Disney Plus. Season 2 though is an absolute banger. I freaking love season 2. Yeah, season 2 out of all the shows is like one of the top seasons for me, right? I freaking love Mando season 2. So it kind of goes back and forth. So I would be close to bottom of Ewan McGregor or top of
That's
C3PO.
exactly what I was gonna say. I say we put it.
We can put it Ewan McGregor for now. If we have a bunch of Ewan McGregors, we'll just move to the top of C3PO. All right?
Yeah, that's what I'm going with.
Okay. Next we have the Jedi Fallen Order game. By the way, this is all the canon movies, like anything cinematic. So there's a bunch of cinematics in both the canon games. I didn't put Squadrons because I don't really think that has anything to really add. I just don't.
Yeah.
I've never played it. He's never played it. It's not something that's really well known.
It'd be like adding a Lego game. It's just going over what we already know. I mean,
I don't think anyone's really gonna care if that's missed. But this game actually does add a lot. With Jedis and Inquisitors. We learn a lot about Inquisitors through this game. This is a really great game. I think it is an Ewan McGregor game. I wouldn't say it's crazy high because it is a video game, so there's not a whole lot of story to add. But just counting the actual gaming aspect of it, it's actually really awesome. I think like out of all the Star Wars games I've ever played, I think it's like this, like the actual controlling and all like the aspects of just character moving and storyline is pretty intriguing, close enough to like Force Unleashed level. So I think it's really fun for that. And like the cinematic part of it is very intriguing. The plot's very intriguing. For gaming in general, especially Star Wars gaming, it brings a lot to the table.
It really does. The visual effects feel like it's one of the new trilogy.
I personally don't have a lot wrong with this game. I have something wrong with the first season of Mando. That's kind of why I want to put it as C3PO. But it's for this game. I don't really have all. I know Alton hasn't played all of it, but like I don't have a lot wrong with it. Like I can't think of something like that like brings it down for me. So I'd have to go Ewan McGregor, probably above Mando. Would you agree?
I'd put it above Mando. I've had the plot spoiled for me, so I've seen the whole thing, and it's really solid. I like it a lot.
Okay. Next we have Empire Strikes Back. Personally, I think this is a little bit of an overrated movie. I think it's a great movie. I love the original trilogy. It's really grown like in this last year since our last whatever tier list for the Star Wars content. The original trilogy has grown on me phenomenally. And I really do love Empire Strikes Back. I just think it's a tad bit overrated, mostly due to nostalgic reasons. Because it was really like when New Hope came out, it was revolutionary, and Empire Strikes Back came out, it like topped everything that everyone was expecting. So like I think it's just a super nostalgic movie, and that's why it has so much love for it.
Yeah.
I could put it in George Lucas, but I definitely put it bottom of George Lucas. I would be either bottom of George Lucas or top of Ewan McGregor. I think it brings like for the movie franchise in general, it's obviously a top 3 or top 4, but I don't think it's like most people have Empire Strikes Back as like one of their favorite movies. And when we first did our first tier list, I had it pretty high too. I don't think it's that high. I think it's great, but it's not that high for me.
It's a great movie. I think we're gonna have to put it top of Ewan McGregor because there's so many George Lucases. Honestly, not so many, but I don't know. Empire Strikes Back is an amazing movie. Introduced so many the freaking bounty hunters.
I'm gonna move Mando to C3PO.
Yeah, that's
the more I think about it, Mando 1 was just mid.
Mm-hmm.
But season 2 was so great. We'll leave it.
It's hard, and we're gonna end up moving to C3PO. I'm saying later, but we'll see.
Okay, next we've got Battlefront 2. Battlefront 2 is pretty great. I actually like it a lot, but I'd put it in C3PO to be honest. I've actually played it myself now. I just finished it not that long ago. It's a lot better than I thought it was when I first started. I first started it and I had nothing for it. I was like, this is all right, I guess. But I put it in C3PO. It doesn't add a crazy amount to the table, right? Like the gaming isn't like the actual gaming of it isn't like super, revolutionary. The story isn't either. It's almost like if they had a book that they wrote, they made it into a game. That's kind of what the story of it feels like. Whereas the story of Jedi Fallen Order seems like very original, very intriguing. So personally, I put Battlefront 2 in C3PO.
Mm-hmm.
I can make a case for Ewan McGregor, but I'd put in C-3PO.
I'd go C-3PO too. I think that it's a very solid game overall. I don't have really hardly any problems with it, but it plays too much with the plot it steers too much away from the plot, I think, because it's going with this new character, Iden Versio, and it's just not, it doesn't tie into anything enough, in my opinion. It has amazing Kylo Ren scenes and Luke scenes, but it isn't enough tied into the main plot, honestly. It's not bad by any means. It's a great plot, but...
Yeah. Next we've got Boba Fett. It's not flying lightsabers, but it's probably BB-9E. Because the best episodes don't even really show Boba Fett, and that's really a killer for me. It didn't add anything. I think the 2 video games we have on this list added more than Boba Fett did. Actual plot-wise for the Star Wars just legacy. It's a legacy character, and they kind of just pooped on it, in all honesty. It brought some cool things. That's why it's not flying lightsaber. It had some intriguing things, but for 7 episodes, it felt like for probably 3 or 4 of them, they wasted a couple of them. So I would have to put in BB-9E. It's a miss in most ways. Like, it's not awful, but it's a miss. I just don't think it. I think it's a step for being pretty fine, but it's also a step away from being pretty bad. So I'd have to put in BB-9E for me personally.
I was gonna put it there too, honestly. I don't think it's not a bad show. If it was standalone, it'd be like, oh yeah, this is cool, but it just doesn't contribute a single dang thing. Battlefront 2 contributed more to the sequels than this did to the entire franchise. You have Mandalorian in there, a new character, and there's just nothing it does. It really doesn't do anything.
Yeah. Next we got Andor. I know at the time of this recording, Andor is not finished, but I thought we might as well put it in there just to have another thing on the list. Andor is C-3PO for me. It's close to BB-9E because it's pretty freaking boring at sometimes, but it actually has been adding a lot for the Star Wars universe. Like, actually, a lot of lore has been added because of this show, and so that alone has to make it C-3PO. The pace is pretty bad. I'm gonna say they gotta pick up the pace. I'm putting this in C-3PO in the hopes that they also are gonna have a pretty good end, because the middle climax that we've had so far was pretty great. I'm expecting the finale to be even better. So I'm going to put it in C-3PO. I'm going to put it at the bottom of C-3PO for now. I think it has potential to be an Ewan McGregor, but as of right now, I think it has to be bottom of C-3PO.
I agree with you. If they pick up the pace and don't do much with it, I'd put it top of C-3PO. But if they pick up the pace, they could easily make this a banger and put it in the bottom of Ewan McGregor. But, I mean, it's not something an everyday viewer would love, but it's so much politics, which is why you have to put it above BB-9E. There's so much just deep lore in there, and it just shows there's so many things it shows you, but it takes 12 episodes. I think there's 4 filler episodes so far out of 9 that we've seen. I mean, 3 of them you could have just not watched at all, and 4 of them you're just like, okay, does this exist? That's half the show. We're 9 episodes in at the time of this recording. Like, yeah. Sucks. But
next we got Rogue One. Rogue One is an absolute unit of a movie. I love this movie. I think it goes George Lucas because it's not a George Lucas project, but it captures a George Lucas vision for me. I think it's a great film. The actual visual effects amazing, the acting amazing, the story amazing. Everything about this, like, I don't have any downsides to it. It's a great Star Wars movie. It adds so much to the universe. It has to be George Lucas. It's not better than Return of the Jedi by any means, but I think personally, if you watch this now, you watch Empire Strikes Back, I think it has a little edge over Empire Strikes Back. I just do. It's close, but I think it has an edge.
It adds so many little characters like Saw Gerrera, and I mean, other people are just insane in this timeline. Adds characters and actually gives them a plot to them, like freaking Andor 2. They're building a TV show off of exclusively this movie. That's the only other time we've seen Andor, if I'm not mistaken. Like, it's just beautiful overall. I like this a lot. I'm putting it above, and I'm putting it top of George Lucas right now, in my opinion. If you want to put it below, you can.
Yeah, I was going to put it in Ewan McGregor, so I'm going to put it in George Lucas.
Okay.
Next we've got A New Hope. I'm not going to let nostalgia view my opinion on this. I think it's not that great of a film. I think it's not a bad film, but like, I can't put it below Mando and
Fallen Order.
Fallen Order, but I think it doesn't belong at the top of the Ewan McGregor. I don't know how else I would do it.
I was gonna put it above Fallen Order.
You just put on.
You can't put A New Hope behind.
Yeah,
Fallen
I
Order.
agree. I think it is a C-3PO film in my opinion, but these other don't belong that low, and this doesn't belong below those two. It doesn't, because it does add way more, and it is one of the first films, and just the history behind it. I guess it does belong to Ewan McGregor.
Mm-hmm.
Next we have Resistance. Neither of us have watched it. I know everything about this show. I've watched my breakdowns and all that according. It's not bad. I want to put it in BB9E just because I don't think it adds a crazy amount. I don't think there's not really a point to this show. But there's some cool aspects. For instance, its actual animation is one of its first for the Star Wars universe. So I think that's intriguing in its own personal way. But yeah, I'd say BB9E. It's better than Boba Fett, though.
Yeah.
You have any opinion on it?
I haven't seen too much about it, so I can't have too much of an opinion about it. I don't know if I'd put it above Boba Fett, but I haven't seen too much about it, so it's all up to you.
Yeah, I would put it in BB9. I've seen a couple of shows, but I didn't even realize what it was when I was watching it. I was watching it before we made this channel, so I was like, "What is this?" I saw BB-8. I was like, "Is this supposed to be Star Wars, or is it a knockoff, or what is it?" And now looking back on it, I was like, yeah, it wasn't bad. It's definitely a kid's show. It's like a season 1 of Clone Wars. That's the kind of level it is. Next we have Kenobi. I think Kenobi belongs to C-3PO because I think its finale was absolutely amazing. I think that finale carries the show. The rest of the show has a bunch of downers, but that finale is absolutely amazing. I put it below Andor because I think Andor so far has been better. The pacing of Andor sucks, but Kenobi had probably even worse pacing because it went up and down. It was just freaking random. Mm-hmm. But I think it belongs in C-3PO.
I think it goes right under Andor, just like you.
Just because its finale is really, really good.
I also like the pacing, as you're saying, kind of sucked in the middle of Obi-Wan. We don't know the ending of Andor at the time of this recording, and Andor, if it has a mid...
It's been consistent, at least.
If it has a higher than mid ending, I'd still say it's above Obi-Wan. Not because I like it more than Obi-Wan. I think Obi-Wan is just a solid show. Just they added so much there. Obi-Wan honestly disappointed me a bit. That ending would have been honestly kind of hard to mess up, but they just... The whole series, all however many episodes, 6, 7, 8 episodes, just didn't...
And episode 5, I like... Or is it episode 5? It's the one.
You like the second to last one, right?
I think it's where he has a flashback with Hayden Christensen.
Yeah, and they were fighting.
That I actually like that episode a lot too.
That's 4 or 5.
I don't remember which one. It was 4 or 5, but that one's a really good episode too.
It had its upsides, but downsides as well.
What was wrong about
it? I just feel like it was too slow. And
that episode?
No, not that episode. I was talking about the series in general.
The series, but those 2 episodes that carry.
Those 2 episodes were great. Yeah.
Next we have Force Awakens. I put Force Awakens at the top of C-3PO. I think it's actually a pretty good film, mostly because it's a copy and paste of A New Hope. But with that, you can't really go wrong because A New Hope is solid. And this didn't really ruin anything. It didn't ruin any characters. It's actually not a bad Kickstarter for the new trilogy. Where they take the trilogy is its own fault, but the actual Kickstarter of Force Awakens isn't bad. I think it goes above the other 3 films because it brought a lot of cool story plots that were intriguing to start with.
Yeah, I like this a lot. You bring up a good point. Everyone craps on the sequels, and I mean, you look at the sequels as if there were one movie, yeah, it'd completely suck. But I'd put this mid C-3PO, honestly. Probably.
It's better than the game. It's better than Andor.
Yeah.
Andor can be better. I think Andor has potential.
Mandalorian's better, so I think right above Battlefront 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that placement a lot.
All right, next we got Rebels. Rebels is kind of like Clone Wars, where the first 2 seasons were just mid, and then the last 2 were bangers. So it's kind of like, it's a little bit like Mandalorian. I personally like Rebels better than Mandalorian, though. So I think the last 2 seasons were freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Just crazy awesome. So I think we can either put this at the bottom of Ewan McGregor and move Mando to C-3PO, or leave what do you want to do?
You put it above or below Fallen Order?
I put it above. Nah.
That's a hard one right there. They both add so much to the plot.
I think because Fallen Order didn't waste its time. Actually, I guess the beginning of the game was a little bit slow. Yeah. No, I'd put it below Fallen Order.
Okay.
All three of those are really close.
That's if I think it's right at Fallen Order. I can't tell if it's above or below, but I below Fallen Order, I would not disagree. Above Fallen Order, nah. Put it in between Fallen Order and Mando is what I say.
Okay, I'd agree. Next we have the Clone Wars movie. It's pretty freaking goofy, but it's intriguing in its own way. It's the first Clone Wars. It's a Kickstarter for the Clone Wars series. It's fun. It's silly. We get new characters introduced. It's a new style. It's the first animation for the Star Wars universe. It's fun, but it's C-3PO because it's pretty freaking childish. I know it's meant for kids, but as an adult looking at it back now, I'm like, ugh, it's just really goofy at times. So I'd have to put it at C-3PO, probably the bottom, to be honest.
That's what I was gonna say. You can't even put that above Obi-Wan. It's just it's a kids show. That's what it's intended for. Add a little bit to the plot with Zero the Hutt, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I get it mixed up with the actual Clone Wars sometimes.
It's
with Zero the Hutt, right?
No,
kind
of, but not really. Zero the Hutt's in it, but she's not in it.
Oh,
she's not.
Whichever one.
It's the kid, whoever the kid of Jabba the Hutt is.
Jabba the Hutt's kid. Yeah, Zero's his girlfriend or whatever.
His cousin,
whatever. They all live in Alabama.
It's not a bad movie, but it
doesn't add anything to the plot. It's just there.
Yeah, it's mid. Next we have episode 2. I love episode 2. Most people hate it because of the corniness of the romantic part of it, but I really love that part because that's Star Wars is a long story, and when a story is great, it has all kinds of different aspects. It has violence, it has intensity, it has romance, and this is one of the few movies that brings the romance in a mature way. I think episode 8 and 9, what they did with Rey and Kylo was just dumb, and I think they did that in a really good way because it just came out of nowhere. Whereas this has been building the whole time, and I think they just brought it in pretty good. I think most people don't like it, but I like it. I think it goes above episode 4.
It also showed the awkwardness.
Plus, the ending of it is freaking awesome.
Oh my gosh, the ending
Everyone loves
amazing.
The ending. That's the best. I put it above episode 4 in Ewan McGregor personally. I don't know what
above. Oh shoot, I was I was gonna put it bottom of George Lucas, but if you don't want to put it there,
it's pretty slow pacing for like the first half of the movie, and that's kind of a little downer for me.
Yeah.
But Empire Strikes Back is better.
Okay.
Easily.
Okay. I can take that.
Next we have Clone Wars. I think this is George Lucas, personally.
Yeah.
The first 2 seasons I know are slow, but like the last season alone, especially that last arc with Ahsoka, is like one of the most beautiful Star Wars arcs. But it's just like what it brings to the Star Wars universe. It's just like every kid from the 2000s who was born, let's say 1999 and after, this is their favorite era because of this show. And I think it just brings so much to the table with lore and canon wise. But the actual show itself, like after season 3, it's like super intriguing. It's actually a really good show after that. 1 and 2 struggle. Not that they aren't bad. Season 1 and 2, I think, go in C-3PO. Everything after that starts going above and above and above. And so I think it belongs at the bottom of George Lucas.
Yeah, I'll definitely give it that. Not very many series last for 7 seasons and just keep getting better every single season. You finish that at season 6, and you're like, wow, this is amazing. And we put it probably in the middle of Ewan McGregor. And then that season 7 comes, and it's better than everything else. And it's just like, oh my gosh. It shows Order 66. Like, that's probably most people's favorite part of Star Wars to see just random pieces of. Like, I mean, we saw a tiny sliver of that in Andor, and we're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. So you'd agree?
Yeah,
bottom
George Lucas.
Okay. Next we have Solo. I think Solo is actually a really good movie. I think it's probably top of C-3PO. I actually think it's better than Mando and Rebels. I put it probably below New Hope personally. I can agree with pretty much anything about it because it's not a really needed movie. It's kind of a random movie. It's like I don't know why this even exists, but like I'm glad it does personally. I like it. I think it's a really good movie.
Doesn't add anything to the plot, but it's a fun movie. This would be a good standalone movie.
Yeah.
If we didn't have any of the Star Wars lore, this would be just a good movie by itself.
Yeah, I personally think it's below A New Hope.
Yeah,
you'd agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right below it.
So right in the middle of Ewan McGregor.
Yeah.
Next we have Revenge of the Sith. I probably still put it above Return of the Jedi. It's probably still my most favorite movie. mostly due to the fact of two reasons. A, its story is incredibly intriguing, but B, the fact that it like holds up today visually is like still really impressive to me. I watched this, I'm like, this looks really freaking good. This looks better than the new Kenobi show. This looks better than the new Boba Fett show by a lot. Like, I think it's really good in that aspect alone. And so just that, I think it has to go. Because I think its story is tied with Return of the Jedi. But visually, I think it gives it a top because they're able to add a lot with just new visuals and CGI. I think that has to make it a top.
I think this is a 2.5-hour movie, and I watch it, and I'm like, that's it? It's already done? It does not feel nearly as long. You'll watch some movies like Endgame, you're like, holy crap, 3 hours? But this does not feel like a long movie. It's beautiful. I enjoy every second of it.
So you'd agree?
Oh, top every
best movie?
100%.
Okay. Next, we have Phantom Menace. Phantom Menace brings a whole lot to the table, but it's kind of slow pacing, at least like the first half of it. I think they...
Up until Darth Maul comes, pretty much.
I think pretty much until they get to Tatooine, it's pretty slow. I don't know how I want to write this. I think
it's hard to put it below Solo, but I'm looking at around that area.
Yeah, I think it's below Solo. I think it's really cool, but like, yeah, I put it below Solo.
Just below Solo is where I'm going.
Personally, I want to put it a little bit lower, but I'd have to agree. I don't think it's worse. I don't think it's worse than those shows or that game at all. I think it's a pretty fair spot.
I agree.
Next we have Bad Batch. Bad Batch started off with a freaking bang. Like those first 2 episodes were absolutely nuts. I loved those first 2 episodes. Like those were like really freaking great. But then it turns into like a really mid show for like a lot of it. Like not bad by any means, but just like a lot of filler episodes, which is kind of what you expect for like a Clone Wars kind of a show. And then its ending was like, it's intriguing but very anticlimactic. Like they build up a very big ending and it's not as big as you would think, but it's still intriguing. I'd put it top of C-3PO. I think the other 2 shows I think Rebels and Mando are better. I might put it below with Force Awakens, but I think it's top of C-3PO. I don't think it's top of C-3PO.
I like it because I was gonna say, why don't we put it closer to Ewan McGregor? But then I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, it's not better than Mandalorian. I'm more excited for Mandalorian than I am next Bad Batch.
Bad Batch season 2, I'm excited for because the last Star Wars content we've been getting hasn't been that great. I think it'll be better than that. But Mandalorian season 3, I'm way excited for. Yeah. Rebels is better than it. So I think it just has to go there.
Yeah, it feels weird putting Fallen Order this high, but that plot is just amazing.
Yeah. And next we have The Last Jedi. So Last Jedi, people hate a lot, and I really get it. I think it goes in BB9E. I think it goes on top of BB9E because they tried something different, and I have to give it props for that. It's really not that bad of a movie. It just ruins Luke Skywalker, and that really ruins it for a lot of people. But if you can get past that, the rest of it actually isn't that bad. I kind of gave it some hate on the Rey and Kylo part because that was just kind of random. But that wasn't this movie's fault because it was just kind of pushed as a narrative through the whole trilogy. But as is, I think it's top of BB9E. I think it's better than Boba Fett. It's better than Resistance. It tries something new. It brought some intriguing storylines, but just ruining Luke really did hurt it. Like if it didn't do that to Luke Skywalker, it'd be a really good movie in my opinion. Like if it built Luke Skywalker up into this awesome character that he is, then it has potential to be a high C-3PO for me.
It does, and I
mean, that Luke Skywalker plot really ruins it. But the rest of it's not bad by any means.
What I want to do is I want to move Clone Wars movie down and put down to BB9E top, and then put this on top of BB9E. It feels weird. I don't know.
I think the
Clone Wars movie is better than this.
It is.
That's sad.
I've seen the Clone Wars movie probably a dozen times though. I think if you get past the childish part of the Clone Wars movie, it's actually got a lot of fun parts. We get a lot of cool characters introduced, like Asajj Ventress, Ahsoka, Captain Rex.
Yeah.
Right, like it brings a lot to the table with that.
It does a bit corny, but that's the point. It's kids, and then those characters are just insanely awesome throughout all of Clone Wars.
And it brings a lot of cool action too, with like Anakin versus Kenobi, right, or Obi-Wan versus Asajj. Like it brings some really cool action to it.
It does.
It just has a lot of goofy humor. But in all honesty, a lot of Star Wars has that goofy humor, so it's not crazy different.
Yeah.
But this just ruining Luke Skywalker really has to put it down low for me.
I'll have to agree with that. I'll go top of BB-9E there. I mean, if this movie, if they made Episode 9, even if they ruined Luke Skywalker and kept Episode 9 going this path or whatever and continued it, I'd honestly think it's a better movie, but they kind of put it like this and went the exact opposite direction, so you don't even know what the director of this movie was wanting to do. Or maybe you do. I mean, it doesn't make no sense. Where they have ADD.
Going over for the podcast, we'll go right from the bottom. Flying Lightsabers. We only have one movie. We've got Rise of Skywalker. It's just not really a great movie. They just didn't have a lot going on for this movie. The best they had was the visual effects, and that was really it. That was all that was intriguing, and this really hurt Star Wars as this started a big decline for the Star Wars fan base was this movie. And so it has to be bottom. Next, we've got our BB-9E, second to the bottom list. Starting at the bottom, we have Boba Fett. Boba Fett has really high potential, but its best episodes didn't even feature the main character once. And that's awful. And its actual budget, you can tell that its budget was low because it doesn't look visually pleasing at all, especially for a 2022 project. That's not very smart.
Yeah.
Next, we got Resistance. Resistance isn't bad, but it's fresh off of one of the worst movies for Star Wars. So it hurts it in that, and it doesn't really add a whole lot. It's just kind of a goofy anime show for Star Wars, which it's not super intriguing. It's just kind of boring. It just brings its own characters and doesn't add much. And then next, in the last for BB-9E, we've got The Last Jedi, Episode 8. It had potential, but it ruining Luke Skywalker. It just brings it down so low for everybody because everyone loves Luke. Luke is one of the cornerstones of Star Wars, and bringing that character down hurts it dramatically. And then right in the middle, we got C-3PO. At the bottom of C-3PO, we have the Clone Wars movie. It brings a lot to the table with characters and just different, all kinds of character arc and plot art, but it's super childish and goofy, and that brings it low for me personally. I can see why a lot of people would have it a little bit higher, but for me, it's pretty goofy. That has to bring it down pretty low. Next, we got Kenobi. A lot of people hate Kenobi, but Kenobi's finale is just amazing, off the charts, just great. Its finale carries this whole episode, and I believe it's episode 5. It's not bad either. I think it's either episode 5 or 4, wherever the siege is with Reva on that Rebel base, and we see the flashbacks with Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor. That's also a pretty good episode.
Yeah.
Next, we have Andor. I know Andor's not finished, but it's actually brought a lot for lore and canon material to the universe. And so that alone has to keep it pretty high. Its pacing is low. That's why it's not high on this list. But it has good potential to move up because it's not over yet. So we'll see the next 3 episodes in the coming weeks. And then we've got Battlefront 2 cinematic playthrough. It's intriguing. It doesn't bring a whole lot to the table because you're playing a game. So you're more focused about the gameplay than the actual story. But its actual story is pretty good. I think it's intriguing as is for a game. And then we have Force Awakens. It's a pretty great Kickstarter for the sequel trilogy. It's a copy and paste of A New Hope, so that's kind of a mid for me, but it doesn't ruin anything for anybody. And then we have Bad Batch. Great start, great finish, really in between, just mid. So it's just top of mid. Then we got Ewan McGregor. Bottom of Ewan McGregor, we have Mando. Mando, most people love it, but I personally do not love season 1. I think it's just kind of a boring season, at least compared to season 2. Season 2 is amazing, brings so much fun to the table, but season 1 brings it really low for me. So I go top of Ewan McGregor with this one. Then we have the Rebels series. Rebels season middle, let's say half of season 2, then season 3 and 4. Absolutely awesome. Brings so much to the table for story. It's fun. It's visually not bad at all, actually. So I put it top middle, close bottom for Ewan McGregor. Then we have the playthrough, or I guess not a playthrough. Just we have the game Jedi Fallen Order. It's super story driven, and so with that, they made a story that was intriguing, and its story is intriguing, and it drives this game really well for most people. And so I'm super excited for the sequel for this game. This game's just great in general. And then we have Phantom Menace. Phantom Menace has a lot of highs for it, but it has a lot of slowness to it for the beginning, so that brings it down for most people. But it is a really fun movie, especially after 30 years or whatever it was. We get the new Star Wars trilogy from the original trilogy, and this was not a bad way to kick it off. And then we have Solo. Solo is slept on. It's one of the most slept on movies, in my opinion. It's a really fun movie. I actually really love this movie. people will agree it's not bad by any means. It's just slept on. People just kind of forget it's there. But it's great. If you can remember this movie exists, you're like, oh yeah, the movie was pretty good actually. Then we have A New Hope. A New Hope, its nostalgia carries it for a lot of people, but personally, it's not bad. It actually brings a lot. And for filming history, this just changed the whole universe. So that alone has to help it. And then we have Attack of the Clones. Most people don't have this high. Most people have a pretty low, especially for the corny romance throughout the movie. I love this. I'm a corny person. You can ask my wife; she will completely agree. I actually love this for this movie. I think it's a core part of Star Wars, having that romance with Anakin and Padme. And there's just a lot of cool like clones and Jango Fett, seeing the awesome fight with Yoda and Dooku, and it's just awesome. And not to mention Kenobi's mullet, banger. And then best for Ewan McGregor, most people will take this as a surprise. We have Empire Strikes Back. I think Empire Strikes Back is another one of those movies that its nostalgia carries it a lot. I think this is a really great movie. I just don't think it's better than any of these other ones we have above it. I think it's close to George Lucas, but not quite. Very close. And then going to George Lucas, we have the Clone Wars series. I know its first 2 seasons are just slow and childish, but its last 5, 6 seasons, we'll go with 5 or 4, are just so good. It embodies George Lucas's story by every dimension, and it's just beautiful to watch. Even now, as an adult, I still love it. I still watch it. And then we have a Rogue One story. It embodies what George Lucas created for Star Wars, and the fact that it wasn't created by George Lucas brings it even higher for me personally. It's just awesome. It brought new characters and brought them in and got rid of them in a really interesting way and intriguing way. And it just brought so much for the story of Star Wars in general to the table. And then close for me, but not as much as Afton, we have Return of the Jedi. I've loved the story of Return of the Jedi. It's just so beautiful to me. Its story arc, this is where the story should have stopped. I think everyone agrees there shouldn't have been a trilogy after this. You can debate it. Your opinion is your opinion, but this is such a great ending for the trilogy. I love this movie, and it's just one of the most beautiful movies in Star Wars history, in film history too. And then everyone knows this is the best movie in Star Wars. Revenge of the Sith.
It's Star Wars. This is
just a great movie. It belongs to top George Lucas. It belongs at every movie. It's just such a great, intriguing movie, and I love it. And that's our list. If you disagree or we're forgetting anything besides the Squadrons game, let us know. We're doing a part 3 next year. This time next year, we'll have some more bangers to add to this list. I know this is a little bit longer film, but hey, I miss doing these longer videos with you guys. This is why we started the channel. Is to talk about Star Wars, give our opinions. This video is the exact reason why we started this channel.
Yep.
And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. You got anything else, Athen?
That's it for me.
Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let us know if you agree, disagree with all your comments. Just let us know. Don't forget to hit that subscribe. We're going to do a giveaway at our 100th subscriber. We're almost there. I'm super excited. It's been a year now, and we're almost at 100. So it's awesome. And then don't forget to hit that like. It helps us so much. And with that, we'll see you guys in the next video. If you're on podcast, don't forget to follow. And I don't download. I think that's what you do in podcast. I'm not too sure.
Something like that.
Yeah. And with that, we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Bye.